Kano, one of the original 7 of Mortal Kombat, and public enemy number 1 of the Special Forces, is getting a younger MK1 redesign. So let's see what we got. Okay, so I've actually gotten a lot of requests for Kano for Mortal Kombat 1. The ones that I can find I have listed here. If I missed your name out, I apologize. He's also one of 2 characters of the Black Dragon clan that I haven't done a redesign yet for. I think at this point I might as well just make a Black Dragon playlist. And I was gonna save Kano for last, but I thought against it. The only reason why is because I also recently did a Shoutout design, and that made me want to try my hand at Kano. Now, because of my need to want to make things harder on myself, I didn't just want to do a normal Kano redesign. I specifically wanted to make him younger, but much younger than what we've seen in Mortal Kombat history. Even quote-unquote younger Kano in MK3, still kinda old looking, or at least older. I wanted to make a Kano that looked even younger than, say, the events of the first Mortal Kombat game. Probably along the lines of how he would have actually looked had he been in Mortal Kombat 1. Also trying to make a young Kano that still looked pretty badass, but looked younger in the same respect would also be a hell of a challenge for me. Not to mention the fact that we've never really seen anything like this in Mortal Kombat before. The closest would have been MK11, and even then, as I've said before, they gave him the sort of MK3-ish look, which still looks much older even though he is supposed to be a younger Kano. So I tasked myself today with trying to design Kano in the origins of the Black Dragon clan. So let's see what I get here.
How about that? Over 50 and still a ripper.
Okay, so starting off, I used a combination of a lot of different Kano poses from Mortal Kombat history, most specifically a concept art I saw from the very first Mortal Kombat game, along with an image from, I believe it's the MKX Kano, which by the way is one of my favorite Kano designs of all time. And then I started sketching out his eye and just his facial structure. Because I wanted him to look younger, I made the impromptu choice to not give him an actual mustache here. I actually remember one of his alternate designs in Mortal Kombat 11 that almost gave him the Wolverine facial hair. I figured that would look pretty cool for a redesign here, at least for a younger Kano, so I gave him that. I also put like little splints and dents, almost like an indentation of the mask into his face, just to sort of make it look more grotesque looking. I hate how clean and neat his mask always looks on his face. It bothers me. Also gave him a funky design for his chest plate too, just to make it look slightly more heart-like, so once again it doesn't look completely perfect on his body. I almost thought about making that look a little unsettling too, considering it's like a mechanical heart, but I thought against that at the last moment. It almost has like a 4-leaf clover design to it and how I did it. Then I had the idea of giving him band wraps holding his armor onto his gloves for both of his hands. I don't know why I thought that would be an interesting design choice. I just figured a whole bunch of shields and like traditional like armor pieces that you've kind of seen in some of his past designs wouldn't be there on a younger Kano. I would think he wouldn't even have the means to find something like that at a young age. Just me spitballing here. But I wanted this to seem like a more raw looking Kano. I didn't want him looking like this seasoned badass Kano that we know in later Mortal Kombat games. So it was a very primitive outlook on his sort of design process. And then I took another design from, I believe it was another one of his MK11 like pants designs, and changed it up a bit, where he had like this weird pattern in the inside of the thigh of his pants. I sort of switched up the detail of that, just because the way that the pants were wrinkled in the game, I thought it made an interesting design. So instead of giving him the wrinkles, I just designed the pants that way, so he has a crazy print in the inside of his thighs of the pants. Then gave him some funky looking knee pads, and then gave him wraps around the boots as well to sort of hold plates together in that spot. In my mind, I already kind of had it so that I would give him a black and red color scheme, almost MK3-ish. As I've said before, I'm a big fan of those MK3 designs. I think that's been said once or twice on this channel. And then sort of gave him a holster for one of his knives on the side of his leg. Once again, another design cue taken from his Mortal Kombat 3 design. And then I went back over top of that with my line art just to clean it up a little bit, figure out what some of these funky lines that I sketched in are. So after cleaning that up, it was on to the coloring phase. Before I continue, I wanted to take this time out to let everybody know if you like the design and want to see any more of my redesigns or content, whether it's me playing games or like watching old fighting game related TV shows, movie, or media, just go ahead and subscribe to the channel. It would be greatly appreciated. Now getting on to the coloring. So I colored the inside of his heart plate and eye first, just to know how I was going to get that to look. I colored it in with orange, knowing that I would fill it out with red to sort of give it that, I don't know, laser look. The detail you probably won't see until I actually start shading it in. From there, I gave a lot of the wraps sort of dark red, almost burgundy looks. And then I colored the inside of his pants, that little pattern that I told you about, I colored that red as well. I was initially going to color his armor plates, or at least the shin guards on them, red as well, but I thought that was way too much, especially when I blackened in the background of the pictures. Absolutely not. So I changed that to like a darker sort of metallic look as well. I just didn't want all the silver pieces looking the same considering how much he had on them. Once again, I did say I wanted a primitive Kano design, so I changed that up. Because his Kano is not really a lot in terms of the coloring department. A lot of his accessories is like a lot of brown and black like holsters and bands on them. Not really too much to wrap my head around there. And then at the last minute, I got the idea to give him a black dragon tattoo. And in doing so, giving him a black dragon tattoo, I got the idea to actually give him a facial tattoo. Again, why? No idea. Kano just seemed like a face tattoo type of guy. I was almost going to give him a black dragon tattoo on his face, but thought against that and just gave him like some shoddy, almost like prison tattoos on his face. I felt like that would look much better for his design. If he gave him a black dragon tattoo, I felt like he would look too much like Taven Dagon, so I left that alone. And then from there, I started shading. The shading was pretty easy, all except for shading his chest where his arm is held or in front of him. Felt like that needed to be darker, so I ended up going over that numerous times. Just in terms of the quick ways that I shade a lot of these designs, I couldn't do that in the same manner here just because of how I posed them. Shading his eye plate was a little complicated, solely because I didn't want to overly shade it, but at the same time I had a lot of detail to fill in, so I couldn't leave it under shaded either. So it was a fine line to have to deal with there. Then went ahead and filled in the details for his pants and his shin guards. Once again, had to change the color of his shin guards just to switch up the metallic look of that as opposed to the rest of his design. Shaded his knee pads and got the details in there so they just didn't look like simplistic knee pads that I always sort of give a lot of characters. Then stuff like muscle tones and etc. and the wrinkles in his jeans and stuff, that was simple enough. Before shading the actual bands that I gave him on a lot of his materials, I went back and sort of shaded the wrinkles in on those first, just to add some detail to it before I went over top of it. I almost just did like regular, just bland shading, and I went, nah, that's not gonna be enough, because it's not gonna read right. It would almost look too lazy and simple. So I did that there and went ahead and filled in the details of his heart plate and then his eye. And after that, I went on to the highlights. And then after that, I went on to the highlights. Starting to shade sort of the lights on his pants, I had to do so many passes for Kano. His highlights wasn't showing up the way that I wanted it to. For whatever reason, it was super bright on his bands and his skin, so I needed to do that multiple times. And I ended up having to change multiple layers on his highlights, which is something I like to avoid a lot of the times when doing this. I also made the mistake of not naming any layers in this design, which also made this a little more complicated. But not to bore you too much with those details, so I started highlighting his knee pads and pants, sort of like the darker pieces of his clothing before going on to like his metallic plates on like the shin guards and the sort of shields on top of his gloves, for lack of a better term. Then going back to where his sort of knife sits at on the side of his leg. I gave him a faint highlight pattern on his pants. It almost made it look dusty or something. I felt like that would help Kano's design too. A lot of aspects of what I come up with in some of these designs are random as hell, to be quite honest with you. Then after filling in those highlights and stuff like the beard and the hair, I went back and, as I've said before, I needed to darken in the sort of spot where his arm is over top of his chest, just to make that look more uniform and make it make sense. So I did that. And then I finished doing the specular highlights in the design to sort of clean it up. And I was finished. And I had this brand new Mortal Kombat 1 Kano, a younger Kano. To me, it looks very different. It doesn't look like the sort of same old Kano designs that we've gotten in most Mortal Kombat games after, say, Deadly Alliance. I feel like Kano has looked extremely similar in most Mortal Kombat games. Mortal Kombat X, to me, being the most unique looking Kano that we've gotten in quite a while, and they immediately reverted backwards in Mortal Kombat 11 in my opinion. So to give Kano like a younger, fresher look to me would be, I don't know, a plus. But I don't know, that's my opinion. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below of how you feel about this design and how you feel about Kano's designs in general in Mortal Kombat. Also, like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't. And you all have a good one, and I'm out.